Hi, welcome to video 16. In this video, we will learn Introduction to Action Classes and writing a program for hovering mouse action. Introduction to Generic Classes, creating and setting up generic class, setup driver factory. Writing a generic test program with registration form and MSN website with login test, and handling autocomplete drop-down list on Expedia.com.
If I have an web application, the whole idea of having a web application, when you click it, you have an element, we click it. We have an element, we click it, and so on. But let's assume I have a menu item where you don't have to click on it. If you just hover, there will be a small drop down kind of thing which comes, which looks like a menu. Then I can click on this. Or if there is a sub menu here, I can hover it so that this guy will give you a list of another menu options, and so on. These are called as action items in our discussion. So let's see how we can do this. On the verge of it, I'll go back. I don't have anything hovering here. Yes, I have it in this site where you just hover it here, and I have pretty much you can click it. So the whole idea here is not to click on the item, rather to hover it. Once you hover, you can click in any one of it, right? That's an idea. So the first task is I have to hover it. I just have to hover it. I don't have to click on it and so on, right? Let's go back and check how we can do this. Here, I'll go back and close all the files in our project work under tests. We have some good programs here. Let me not disturb this package. I'll create a new package here. Let's create a package. I call this package as uh, something like com.sdet.action actions or action item. Anything is good. So let's create a class or JUnit class, JUnit test case. Now, when we create a JUnit test case, let's call this as um, action test. Action test. Let's say finish. So pretty much a few things which we want to take it from the previous example. Let's go back and copy it. So here, uh, the last one which we stopped is with the demo card. I'll just copy this right from this line to this line. I just copy and paste it. So I have a driver key, driver path, maximize implicit weight, and this will be changed here. Will be looking like this. It will be https://russia.com. Then we have a tear down method where things are getting rolled out and we do a driver.quit. So let's have a test case and also put some nice comment program to show working on action classes. Right. So here I have public void something like action test, which throws interrupted exception. In case if we use thread.sleep, my interrupted exception will come and help me, right? So first job, what we have to do is driver dot. Um, we have to get the URL. So I say driver dot get the base URL. That's the first job. That's the first job. So now, what we may have to do is, you just have to go to the site and don't have to click it. You just have to hover it. When you hover, I want this XPath. So of course, I can try using Google Chrome, but I always feel like using Firefox. It is pretty easy since a Firefox is there. So let's go back. I just want to open my uh, Mozilla Firefox So here I have Mozilla. Perfectly fine. That's where the Firefox is kept. So here, and this guy keeps troubling you for whatever case to update it, keep saying no. So let's go back and inspect element with the Firebug. Here I click on Firebug. So it's pretty much visible here. So I just use the inspector, go here. I just want to hover it and leave it here. So this will be the first menu item. This will be the first menu item. So if I could just put it in a notepad, menu item, menu item. This is your menu. So now we may have to hover on this. That's the first thing. The next job, the next job is click on submenu item. So here, when I take this guy, hover it here, it gives you a drop down. So maybe I would just want to click in one thing. And if you keep seeing this, the good thing is you can right see it on the fire path. Just keep an eye on fire path. I just hover it. Look at this. When I click on Indo-Western, so it gives you LI of 1. This guy will give you LI of 2. So I can even do an iteration of that. That is also possible. Let's click on any one of it. I just want to click on Western. So now I'll just take this guy, take this X path and go back and put it here. Perfect. So just click on the submit button. So the whole idea here is it's not only the click of an element, I have to hover on some element, wait for it. Once after I wait, I have to take it further with submit button. That's an idea. So once I click on this, it gives me a list of different values, or maybe it loads a new page. I just want to leave it here. So again, the whole idea here is you click on some element, it again puts it on the card and so on. But just before that, let's take it further. Here we did driver.get. Once after I did, I have a string which is called as menu item string submenu item. My menu item is this. I just copy it, go back, put it here. My submenu item is this. I go back and put it here. That's it. That's good. So now what I have to do is I have to go ahead and try saying this guy, hey, look at this. You don't have to click on this. Clicking is okay. We've been doing it from long time. You just go to element, dot click. We've been doing it. Now I don't have to click it on menu item. Rather, I have to hover and wait for it, right? So what we do is let's create a web element of menu item. Menu item element is equal to which is driver dot find element by xpath, and xpath is menu item. That's perfectly fine. So what happens? I've not clicked it. I've not sent any keys or whatever. I just have a logical reference of menu item. Item. Perfectly fine. Once after this, I want to give this menu item to somebody. Now, who is it? He's called actions. Actions, which is in plural form, which again comes from r.openqa.selenium.interactions. So there's a whole set of packages where you do interactions, something like hovering, drag and drop is one of the good utilities which you have it, and so on. So actions, I'll say actions is equal to new actions of So what we have done, we have taken the driver object and given it to action so that whatever you can do with the driver, the action can also do. Now I'll say, hey, actions. The moment I put some dot, no, just have a look at this. I put a dot and do control space. Let us zoom this. So it says click and hold, context click, double click, drag and drop. You can do key down, key up, move to that offset value. So now when we say move to that offset value, you are just moving your cursor to certain X and Y coordinate. Move to the element. That's what probably we are looking for. We want to move to the element of the element which we have just created, plus move to the element. From there, I want to move to some offset value. I want to pause for some duration and I want to release some action and so on. Release will come when you want to do some drag and drop, right? So there are like a lot of options which is available where you can try for action. Anything you name it on day-to-day activity which we try doing it. You want to double click, you want to do a key press down, key press up, you want to do control C, control V. All these things, the action classes can pretty much try doing it. So now I say I want to move to an element here. The element is called as menu item element. So once I move to menu item element, then I want to the next job which I want to do is I don't want to click. I have to do something called as perform. Perform. So what my does is it will make sure the job is done. So here the perform is one action which just does. So what happens? Menu item, move to element, menu item. It just gets information. When you say perform, it goes there. So once after it goes, because this earring, when you want to load it, if you just hover it, it takes a little delay. So if you just hover it here, it takes like half a second or 1 second of delay. So what I do is I just say thread dot sleep. I just want to give a 1 second delay so that the menu gets loaded. Once after this, let's say, uh, all right, clicking on sub item. All right. So here I say element sub menu is equal to driver dot find element by XPath of submenu item. Very good. So I can use with action classes, since this is only a click event, you can do just a click. For example, submenu element dot click. This works perfectly fine. This works perfectly fine. This works good. If not, you have another way using classes. The choice is yours. You can do anything of your choice. So here I'll say, hey, actions dot uh, dot click submenu item dot perform. So this is where you can try having this tool. So let's put it on action and see how this works. Let me right click, run as. I think I have not annotated this with at the rate test. If I don't annotate this with at the rate test, it doesn't give me an option to run with JUnit. Okay, perfect. Alright, it loads a page perfectly fine. It should hover it once after the page load is done. Yeah, and clicks on Western earrings. That's absolutely fine. So it has done the job, which was intended. It hovered and click on it and so on. So that's where we go with, because we can go ahead and stop it, not required. And this is where it clicked on submenu item. Now let me just make a few heads up of all the program which we have done. So far we have executed close to like 10 Selenium scripts. Now if you see any of the Selenium scripts which we have written so far, we tried having the test case searching for that element. So I'm trying to say something like this. Let's go back to our MS Paint. Here, there is a web application. What we've been doing is there is a web application. So what my web application pretty much does is it has got elements. It has got various elements. So maybe like here and so on. What we did, we went to Selenium script, probably a jailbreak. We tried opening this web application. So we'll say something like get. So get, when you say get, this guy opens it. So since this page is open, you have the DOM control. So we went ahead and do some click, perform, send keys, all these values you do it. Let's assume we are working on a large scale where it's not only one test case which you're gonna write, we will be writing many test cases. So eventually what happens, you will have one more test case, right? One more test case. Eventually what happens, you will have one more test case. Likewise, I can have so many test cases. Now, if something goes wrong here, it means everywhere it should change. Now, when I say something goes wrong here, this meaning, imagine the field name is called as name. Tomorrow, the developers will come and change name to name one. Then here, I have to change name to name one. Here, I have to change name to name one, name to name one, name to name one, and so on. Everywhere you have to invariably change. And there is no good mechanism which helps us to do that as of now. We are not finding the concrete or the best practice as of now in the next program, but the whole idea here is to elevate our mindset in such a way that anytime you want to go there, what we do is we'll have an intermediate class. We'll have an intermediate class. And moreover, what happened, somehow, we did not like this. At least I did not like every time you keep saying it as, oh, find it by X path. Or if I just go back to one of the example, you will have the saying it as find it by ID or find it by ID here. Every time you keep doing it, is it enabled? All these things, you don't have to go ahead and do it. Rather, what we do is we'll have another class, which is a generic class. What this class does is pretty much take every request which gonna come from this guys. It will not directly go here to the web application. It will not go here. Rather, everybody has to pass through this. Everybody has to pass through this. You pass through this, you pass through this, you pass. This guy will be one point in contact to go with. So you don't have to uh, really tell too much of information. This guy, we can make it as intelligent, which can help us to hit to the web application and get the required data. So this eventually, as of now, we are creating our own class which is called as generic, but eventually we're gonna change it to something called as POM, which is called as page object model. Keeping it short, now with our discussion, we want to have this generic class in place so that we don't try to like to write the long Selenium script. Rather, let's try finding some mechanism where we can reduce it as much as possible. So let's go back and try creating some documents which will help us to reduce the code. So first and foremost, I'll go back to this package. It's called as SRC. I have two packages. One is basics, one is utilities. I also create a package here which is called as generics. I'll say a package called as com.generics. So here under generics, I've created a class. Let's call it something like generic methods. Generic methods. Now, the whole idea of having generic methods is to create this class which you call it as an intermediate class. Anytime you want the element, anytime you want it by ID and all, the Selenium script will not right now. It will all be given to generic. So now I just go back to this guy. I would just say, hey, I need a web driver, driver. So do understand when you said web driver, the web driver we have created. Probably if it is a good practice, of course it is a good practice. We can try creating a class which is called as driver. So what my driver does is it will load every detail what you wanted either for with Firefox, Chrome, etc. in this class. And this is our Selenium script. The Selenium script will take this driver class and give it to the generic class, then give it to this guy. So that the whole idea of having the generic class here is you don't have to make your test script long. So in all hypothetical situations, if you try understanding, in real world, there will be hundreds and hundreds of Selenium scripts which we plan to write it. But the number of classes, somebody like driver class or generic class, are exactly equal to one. They're just one class, and moreover, they come only once in lifetime, not every time. Let's see and code it as to understand better. Here, since I need it only once, I would have a constructor which is public generic methods. I'll have web driver. The star driver is equal to driver. This meaning the driver object will be given from Selenium. So Selenium script. So now we want to do little job. Uh, we may need a method which will return the element or rather the web element on the request from Selenium script. So what this Selenium script does is it says, hey, look at this web driver, Mr. Web Driver, or I'm sorry, the generic class. I'm looking for this element. Can you help me? I'll give you the locator and I'll give you the ID, but I don't like to write this driver dot find element by blah blah blah. So all this code which you want will be refracted and kept in your class. Or this guy says, okay, that is something which is possible now. So what we do is we'll just have a public web element, web element, get element. I just call it get element. I'll try passing two parameters. One is string locator. One is the string type. For example, now what we have done so far in the scripts, if you try understanding it, every time we kept on saying something like by ID and the name. So this is something which we have to say every time, which is like so complicated, The number of lines of code got so much increase. Rather, we want to make this really easier. So tomorrow, if I'm only a tester, I should have a mechanism where I should have a simplest syntax to go ahead and execute. So in that way, this guy is called as the the type here is ID or name or partial link text or link text, whatever. The locator is name, email, subject, message, shipping, contact, whatever. So that's your locator. So what we do is the Selenium script now has to give me two parameters. Based on that, I'll give you the element. So a lot of code gets refracted here. So let's put this in practice. And I'm just trying to say here, I want a web element called as element. So let's set it as null initially. So I don't know, this guy might give it in uppercase or lowercase. I'll just convert this to lowercase. So that's the first thing. So once if this is done, the next job which we are planning to do is I just put writing the if condition. I said if type dot equals something like ID. So if you are looking with ID, it means here I'll write element is equal to driver dot find element by ID. The ID is locator. The locator. That's perfectly fine. And if you just correlate or if you just could connect few dots, this code we used to write it in Selenium script. From here afterwards, we will not write this kind of code in Selenium script. They still get executed, but Selenium script will have a function which is called as get element. We just pass the locator and type. The element is given for you. And of course, if it is not found, we should find some alternative to give a null element. So likewise, probably in our future example, I may need a little more. Let's go back and finish off equals. If it is based on the name, I would say, hey, element is equal to driver dot find element by name, the locator. Perfectly fine. Else, if type dot equals um, xpath element is equal to driver dot find element by xpath, which is locator. Else if type dot equals partial partial link text. If the user gives partial link text, element the driver dot find element by partial link text by export. I'm sorry, this is locator. To make sense. Else, if I'm just trying to list it for most of it, which we have over a course of time, we may need it. Type dot equals uh, based on class or CSS, whatever you want. I'll say element is equal to driver dot find element by class. Okay. So once if this is all done, finally, what I do is I just go back and say return element. So we have made sure we created an element. I have an if else class, and we know that from our program practice that only one of the if condition will get executed. So since it gets executed now, one of this will be stored and the return element is given. That's the whole idea of having this element. Now, there could be certain cases. There could be certain cases where you want to have more than one element. One of the classiest case which we were trying to discuss is somebody called as Expedia.com. Now, what happens in Expedia.com is if you just click on partial text, here I have, uh, you know, I'll just say BENG. So here it gives you various options. So there is a chance that more than one element will come into picture, right? So here it is. So now there might be some scenarios where we enter some partial text. The whole idea here is not only to get one element. There could be a possibility when I say something like uh, BENG, I have a lot of options which can come out. So I should also capture multiple elements. So if you could just recall with the get element, which we've been doing it, we had driver.find element. There was another guy who's called driver.find elements. So elements, what it does is it gives you a list of web elements. Let's do that method as well. No, just before we could go back to Selenium. So here I'll say public list of list of web elements. So now what happens? This guy will not give you one element, rather he will give you multiple elements. I'll say something get elements string type string locator. So perfectly fine. The same thing gonna happen. Now let's do. a list of web element, web element. So let's set it to null. I'll say type is equal to type dot to lowercase so that if the user gives me in uppercase or lowercase, we can still convert it to lowercase. So I would say if type dot equals ID. So in case if they are searching with ID, then I'll say elements, which is in a plural form. We're gonna have a declare variable elements is equal to, let's say, is equal to driver dot get elements. Sorry, that's this driver dot find elements. If you see I'm selecting the plural formed find element, find element by id. So what is my id? Which is locator. Perfectly fine. This is good. Else if type dot equals let's say by name, uh, we can probably select everything which you want. So this will be name. Else if type dot I'm sorry, there's a typo. If type dot equals by something like xpath, I can have it by xpath, etc. No, so finally I return elements. That's a whole idea. That's the whole idea of having it. So again, we may have to fill other locators, other types, sorry, somebody like class or partial link text or class name, whatever you have it. No, you have to keep filling this story out there. If I just go back again and try knowing it, here I have it by id. Perfectly fine. So what happens, this guy who's get element will give you uh, one element found on the DOM. This will give you more than one element on the DOM. So of course, we have seen one of the classic example is google.com itself. Of course, we're gonna do this example in some time, like google.com. So here we tried writing some example with this. So if I go to google.com, I'll say places to visit near me. I want to record everything which comes. So this one will may not be coming as one element. This might come as more than one element. So in such case, we can go with elements. So that's an idea behind it. Now, there's one more small trap here which might occur. Of course, we have not discussed this anytime. The whole idea here, where I was taking it to this web application called as demo store x .xcard.com, I just tried uttering few no, pointers, saying that if I have a shipping here, there might be possibility there is another shipping somewhere here. There might be another shipping somewhere here, and so on. Now, when the DOM element gives you the link by shipping, we want to get exactly one. We don't want more than one shipping to be given. In such case, I have to ensure that I'll get only one entry or a single entry of it. So what I do is, whatever element I get it, I'll give it to this guy. So whatever element I get it here with the locator and type, I give it to this guy. The good thing about the get elements is that he returns me a list. Now, good thing about returning a list is you can get the size. So for this, I'll just write a quick method, a small method, just a utility method, public boolean check single entry of string type, string locator. I just say return get elements of type and locator. I just want to check the size. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I made a typo. Type dot size. If this size equal to one, then this will return true. This will return true. Where do I use it here? I have to make sure. If the user gets an element, before returning it, I will check if this check for single entry of the type and locator. If it is true, then only I will return the element. Okay, so I can pretty much do it here. I can return the element. Else, if the element is not found, or if I have multiple entries, I'll say system.out.println. Sorry, uh, element not found or has more than one entry. ENTR. So it's always good if we could also keep track of the exception. So for this, I'll take this code, I'll put it in if class, I'm sorry, try class, and put it in a catch block, catch, exception E. I say E dot print stack trace. So here to here, perfectly fine. So if something goes wrong, just to keep the compiler happy, I will just say return null, return null. So that's where we want to have it. So there are a few semicolons missed out, and we'll just finish off. That should be fine. So we have like some good methods. The whole idea of having these methods is to ensure that we get an element by this class, not in the Selenium script. Again, writing everything in Selenium script is absolutely a bad idea. We have to find some way where we can keep refracting the code to the utility classes. The code reusability should happen. And day in day out, the Selenium script is something which we have to do it every day. You will be refactoring, so you don't have to invest a lot of time and effort in writing this find element by id name expert. These are like repetitive code which does not make any uh, significant difference keeping it in a Selenium script. Let's write a practical application using this. Let's see our diagram, what we have done so far. We have tried creating a generic class, and there's another class which probably just out of the interest we can try doing it. That will be a really, really good class for our discussion, because over a course of time we want to reduce the code. So even when you are taking this, workspace away, you don't have to write too many things, because if you see from all our examples, we keep dumping this data. I'm sorry, here we keep dumping this data. So many lines of code. In the before, there are so many lines of code. There could be possibilities when you have the driver to be loaded. You can say, hey, Naveen, look at this. We want to load a Chrome driver. We want a Firefox driver or whatever. This will eventually will take number of lines in your Selenium script. The whole idea here, we don't have to do this thing. We will refactor it and keep it. For example, demo card is the one good example. You see, there are like about 4 or 5 lines which unnecessarily we are trying to use it. So can we refactor this and keep it elsewhere so that we can save this space? And now the answer is yes. Now the answer is yes. So what we do is quickly go back to our utility package. We have this driver. Let's create a class which is called as driver factory. Factory. So this class, and this class will give you the driver based on the string parameter pass. That sounds perfectly fine. I want to have a web driver. Let's set it as null. If um, I just want to keep it as a variable, like public. Let's say this as static. Now you don't have to create so many driver elements. Generally, it's only one. Uh, web driver, web driver. I say get driver of string driver name. Perfectly fine. If driver name dot equals Chrome. If this is Chrome, I just want to do a little job. Of course, typing is good, but I can copy this and put it here. So here, put it here. So I can have driver is, of course. Uh, okay, so let's keep it here. So since it's a static method, either you can declare this as a static or let's keep it inside the method. So we have a driver element. I'll say driver is equal to new Chrome driver, maximize, implicit weight, all those things. Then finally return driver. Very good. Else if driver name dot equals Firefox. If you want Firefox, it is as easy as it. So I'll say uh, system dot set property of driver dot Firefox key. The value is driver dot Firefox path. That is perfectly fine. I say driver is equal to new Firefox Fox. Perfectly fine. So here, I just want to copy few more things and return this. I'll copy these three lines. I'll copy it and put it. So again, if you don't want this to be set at here, we can again go back and do some job. Else, all your drivers you put it here. Else if driver name dot equals IE. Uh, I don't know if we have created. Okay, we have it for Chrome path and Firefox. I hope you remember that driver class. So here, I just leave it to do here. Okay, for whatever case. And this lines, if you see, gets repeated multiple times. So what I do is I'll just cut this and put it here. From here, I just delete it. Perfectly fine. So we are just trying to reuse the code as much as possible without without having in the Selenium script. That's the whole idea. So you check if it is a driver of Chrome type, set the create path, create an object, then it will go to this place. If it's Firefox, these two lines will get executed. It will go here. If it is for IE, we may have to do a to do here, and so. So let's start writing the test case here to understand it better. I will have one is action class. Let's not disturb that. I'll create a package which is called as com.sdet dot. Let's create the sdet in uh, something like generic tests, something like this. Now, any package name is good for us. Create a JUnit test case. Now, my test case, let's call this as we want to have two test cases this time because we have not written any class where we have multiple test cases. I would say one is, of course, the MSN. Okay, let's call it generic test O1. Right, that's our first test case. So this guy will have two things, two test cases. Generic methods. That's the first thing. Using a driver factory, having multiple test cases. One for registration form, and the second one is for MSN login. Right. So there are like two things which. So first and foremost, public void. Uh, let's call this as register form. The next one, public void. Uh, I just want to do MSN login. Right. Perfectly fine. So they both get annotated with test. Right. So here your before and after should be written. So let's write it public void setup public. This is our old friend, not a new one. I just put after. So here I'll say thread dot sleep for some time, and let's call it about 2000 milliseconds, so which is fairly good. Then I'll say okay, so I have to have a driver. So we have to try have a driver. So what I do is for accessibility, we will have few variables quickly declared. One is called web driver, perfectly fine. There is a next variable called as string variable, which is base URL, and let's have generic methods. Generic methods. So we should have a class which is called as generic methods. Generic methods is the variable name. Perfectly fine. Because here we can do driver dot quit. That's something which is possible. Now, I want to do a little setup. I want to do a setup. Uh, I can say, hey, look at this. I want a driver, but I don't want to write any story. I just go to driver manager dot get driver of Chrome. That's it. Trust me, it's only one line. It's only one line. No more lines. This guy will do the job for me. So what is this happening? Driver methods. What are we returning? List is good. Web driver, perfectly fine. We oh, this is generic methods. Where is our driver factory? So driver factory pretty much does not do this. Driver factory web driver. There's a web driver, but why does it ask me to typecast? Oh, okay. The driver manager I have taken from here. I'm really sorry about this. This will not be our driver manager. It will be driver factory. I've taken it from wrong class. I'm sorry about it. Dot get driver of Chrome. It doesn't have to do a typecast. That's why I doubted it. So trust me, when you just say driver factory dot get driver of Chrome, entire script will get executed. Entire script will get executed and set it. In fact, over a course of time, if we just have to check if some case study will be there, we can even set some parameters, right, for loading the driver. So pretty much you're just done with only one line in your select script. I want a string base URL is equal to, let's see the first one. I just want to show you here. Web slash registration form. This is one of the first forms which we want to tie up. Where, of course, we have already seen it. I hope you remember that we tried putting some data and so on, but I just want to show you once again the generic methods. So here, this is your application. I say generic methods is equal to new generic methods of the driver. So you just have to pass the driver. The generic method has pretty much the driver object, and of course, we have a parameter constructor here. We have done enough job. Let's see what we got to do it now. We'll go back to this MSN login. As of now, I just collapsed it or at the rate ignore. So let's here. I'll say driver.get. I'll keep this URL, which is base URL here. Let's go ahead and find the locator and give it to generic method and the values as well. So what I do is I'll go back to this guy here. Let's find inspect element. Inspecting an element. I'll just say the first one, which is yeah, ID is email, right? Input email. So I quickly declare a few variables out there for our understandability. String email locator is equal to this. So that's your locator. So input email is a locator. By how it is by ID. It is by ID. So the next guy who's gonna come will be the password. The password here is called as input password. So I'll say string password locator is equal to input password. String, I'll just see who's the next guy, who is confirm password. Confirm password. Confirm password locator is equal to this one. So I'm just quickly copying things here and there, here and there. ID is first name, get string, first name locator is equal to first name locator. Likewise, we can select anybody of them. So last name. So rest of all these things you can pretty much try doing it. So there are a couple of other fields you just have to put this values. Don't worry about this drop down. We're gonna see that. Of course, we have already seen it. To do it. See if we can do it. If not, we can take an example which we can help to do it. And of course, clicking up an element, there's somebody here which is called as travel plans, which is from and to. Yeah, I think that it should pop out with the date. That's my one form. Awesome. Maybe the jQuery library would have been updated. That is why these people would have stopped it. But anyways, I'll check. The whole idea here, when I click on it, it will give you a small pop-up for selecting a date. Either this is good or we can use expedia.com, whatever is good for us. So here I want to use generic methods for invoking the job. Let's see how we can do this. I'll say generic methods dot get element. The locator is email locator. The type which I want is with ID, and I want to send keys of cb@gmail.com. Perfect. Generic method start get element. The next one is password locator by ID. Send keys is secret. Something I'm just trying to give it. Generic method start get element. Confirm password locator by ID. Dot send keys. Dot get element of first name. I'll say generic method start get element. I'm sorry. I'll say last name ID is dot set is just a character. So no meaning here as of now. So if you just have a look at this code, imagine I don't have a driver methods at all. I don't have it at all. So I just call it one. It does the same job, but it needs a lot of overhead of finding things and so on. I can say driver dot find element by uh, by id. What is it? Which will be email locator dot send keys of sleep@gmail.com. So look at this. The difference between this method and this method. In fact, this one actually split into two or more statements or whatever. But the whole idea here is the methods become very clear. You just have to give your locator and the ID to which you're referring. You don't have to understand what are you doing it by find element or whatever. This will be a great initiative if somebody as an amateur comes to your project where they want to write some scripts with the Selenium. They don't have to understand what is called as find elements and blah blah blah. You can just hide all those things. You can say, hey, look at this, guys. There is a method which is called as get element. You have to send me a locator. Over a course of time, this get the email locator will also be injected from somewhere else. This might come from a property file, this may come from something else or whatever, blah blah blah. And I have this ID, name, whatever, and you just have to send the keys. In next few examples, we will reduce this code also to such a great, drastic extent that your Selenium script will look so simple. Trust me. But this was the first step for doing it. Let's go back and execute it and check if everything goes well. So I'll say test is the JUnit. So there's a null pointer exception. So a nice null pointer exception. Let's see what this exception is all about. So here, generic test one, line number 46. I think this driver has become null. Driver has become null. So we went to this guy who is called as get driver. I don't know what this guy has to do. I'll say driver is Chrome. Maximize, return this driver. Okay, perfectly sounds good. Anything which I have missed? Oh, sorry. I have already declared written a variable here. Let's see if this goes well. Change. Okay. So in line number 46, it says null pointer exception. Awesome. Driver.get. That's good. The driver, it takes Chrome. If it is Chrome, it comes here, sets the path. I just want to put a system.out.println just to write loading Chrome driver. Okay, let's go back to this guy. Run as JUnit. In our console, oh, it does not say. This is where the problem is. It is not loading it. I have not annotated this JUnit. So it should pretty much put the value quickly. Look at this. It does the same job as what it used to do earlier. This time it has this our program has got much more maturity than the previous one. It's more of a mature program now. So hope just to run through the flow, what we have done so far, we have a class here which is called as driver factory, which is driver factory. You give the name of the variable or in the form of a string. This guy will give you the driver. You can even set the parameters here. Whatever parameters you want, you can set. There's another class which we tried writing, which is called as generic methods. The whole idea of generic methods is you give the locator and type. This guy will give you element or elements. whatever. You keep your Selenium script. I can have one script or multiple scripts. Every script should not have find elements. Ideally, that's not a good practice. Every script should not load the driver factory. Rather, what we do is we will call anytime we want the driver factory. We'll just call this guy who is, in our case, happens to be the driver factory class. You just call this. This guy will give you everything what you want. You want the methods or the locators of the web page, right? You don't have to go and talk. You ask the generics will hit that because we would have got the driver factory here. We would have passed the driver factory here. Now the page is loaded. Once the page is loaded, executed, the generic methods will be so responsible now to give the element for you or not. If something goes wrong, this will give you an exception. The good thing about this guy is he can even give an element which is got multiple entries. So let's have one more example. So probably for somebody like MSMR, of course, this is a new requirement for me. The first thing is one is base URL, which we have created, string base URL1. So in base URL1, what I do is here base URL1. Okay, so the whole idea where we wanted to do msn.com. If I go to msn.com, so I may have to hover here. Once I hover, the first job is I have to hover, right? Then click on sign in. I'll right click and inspect the firewall. So here, the idea is msn.com, msn.com. So here, I'll just go back to Firepath. Under Firepath, I'll click the inspector. I take this mouse on top of this guy, copy this. This is click on the first item. This is Outlook. So this is what it looks like. Once after you click, I want the next fire path. The next fire path, maybe like uh, something like this. Maybe send your emails or there is no. Yeah, I think sign in is good. Sign in is good. At least that's an element. So or create now, whatever you feel like. So I want to click on sign in. This is what you can do. Once you can uh, sign in. So here it's not click on. This is hover on first menu item. Then once you probably have the item, somebody like sign in, you can take this. And when you click on sign in, again it will show you the next set of values. Something here. I can again go back, inspect an element with the firewall. Uh, I'm sorry, firepath. Here I click on it. So I want to get an ID. That's what the ID it all talks about. Enter, enter, sign in, username. That's perfectly fine. And I may have to click on the next. I may have to click on the next. So this is what the button is. So anyways, click on button next, which is this. So we have to hover on MSN. We may have to go to msn.com. For this, I'll take this link. Uh, Here is your link. Perfectly fine. This is good. So now I have this method. The method is driver.get. I want to load URL, base URL one. That is something which you have to do it first on the first go. Once this is done, I have to make use of generic methods and I also need action classes because the whole idea here is to hover. That's the first thing which you have to do. Once the page is loaded, you have to hover on outlook.com. Hover on email. So for this, you need actions, actions is equal to new actions of the web driver. The web driver is driver in our case. We've already done this. The next job is once I have an action, I want an element. So the element itself is written here. So if you recall, this is where the element is. I'll have a locator. I'll have all the variables declared here called a string locator for, okay, what is this? What is this? Outlook locator. Outlook, perfectly fine. This is good. All right. So now what I want is actions dot the method name which we have to look for is move to the element, which is the element. How do I get the element? So I have to get the web driver. I'll say generic methods dot get element. What is my element? Locator is Outlook locator. The type is XPath, right? Hope this makes sense. Dot perform. So this guy will move to this element and just hover it. It does not do much thing. So let me just do it. I'll ignore this for a while. We'll execute both of this in some time, but I want to execute only MS and just to check if it hovers it. I'll say right click, run as J. So it loads this page and it should hover on Outlook. Yeah, perfectly fine. It has hovered. It has hovered. So now once after I hover, click on sign in. So this is on click on sign in. So there's another string which is called as uh, sign in locator. Perfectly fine. I'm sorry. This is perfectly fine here. Once I click on the sign in, uh, enter sign in username. So we have to enter sign in username. Of course, there is ID that is that will be good. So I'll say string. What is it? Uh, username. Username locator. Here it is. I want to have string. The next is next btn. Next locator is equal to this. I'm sorry. Here. Great. This perfectly fine. So once I move, I have to click on sign in locator. That is, you can again go back and use action classes. Again, you really need it. I'm not a very big fan of action as of now. I can just say generic methods dot get element. The locator is sign in locator. The type is XPath. We know that. Dot click perfectly fine. Then I want to have generic methods dot get element. Uh, here, here the locator is username locator locator. This is by ID dot set keys. I have an account, perfectly fine. So here I have to click on the next button, generic method start, get element, button next. This is again ID dot click. So hopefully this should do a fair job. Let's put it in practice, execute it and check. So it should hover. It has clicked on it. It has entered. Yeah, it's waiting for password. It's waiting for password. So hope you saw that. Again, you have to click on the password and take it further and so on. But the whole idea here is not to run that example, to show the beauty of having the generic methods. You don't have to do anything called as find by element and all those things, but this will be the first step for us to get the code reduction in the uh, Selenium script. Let's take it further, and we can even take this guy out. Ignore, just execute once. We have multiple test cases running it. So it works with MSN perfectly fine. It clicks on it, enters, clicks on next. It does not do anything, and it does not stop. It opens another test case, which is for registration form. Here, I should be entering read. Makes sense. No? So you have two test cases. Let's see the output. So here you have two test cases. Let's see each of the test case story of that. I may have to little minimize this. Yeah, it took like 40 seconds, 21 seconds for the MSN, about 12 seconds or 13 seconds for registration form. Right. That's a whole idea of having the test case. So let's go back here to expedia.com. So here we tried doing it because we have put the data and executed, but I have a very simple requirement. Now it's a very common requirement. So most of our training we land up doing it. I don't have a text field anything. I want to have a test case in such a way that I don't know where am I traveling from. So I just put SAN. That's where I'm traveling from. The moment I put SAN, what happens? Eventually, eventually, you will have so many places where I can have San starting from. Something like San Diego or San Francisco, San Antino, and so on, San Jose, and so on. There are like so many places where you have. So the whole idea here is to understand for a test case, in our case, is you have a text box. So you have like two text box. One is for source, one is for destination. So what you do is when you put something called as ACAN, now this guy will give you a list of pop-ups. No, there will be a lot of values. Let's not worry about it. The whole idea here is to capture it. Same way for destination. Let's consider the destination. I want to enter something like yeah, something like Washington. So here, yeah, this goes really slow sometime. Okay. So I just select one of it. Perfect. So this I'll say uh, any of the top one, like WA. Yes. Yeah. Here I have Washington, New York. Maybe they have got an algorithm where it'll also, when you're searching for Washington, they'll also show you the closest to airports for that matter. So I'll select this. Again, when you put something like WAS, so it'll give you a list of the most closest values. So I want to have test cases for button. So the whole idea here is to execute numerous test cases. This will be the first value. For this, I want to test with all the destinations. Hope this makes sense. For the second one, we want to test again with all the test cases. For the third one, we want to do the same, and so on. So if I have a combination of like six values here, right, and I have about six, so I can easily find about 30, 6 are 36 combinations of source and destination. But for this, I have to get the value which gets loaded on the dropdown in my Selenium script. So that's a whole agenda for this program. It's something like Google test, which we did it. When you just put places near me, for me, it gives you a different value than your, depending on the geographical area. So there are a lot of examples like this which can help us to suffice this. So let's go ahead and try understanding this in better way.
So I open expedia.com. Preferably, I want it to be on Firefox. So I click on the first thing is I click on the flights tab. In the flights tab, I want to enter few values, and I also want to capture the fire path. So here I just put BENG. Oh, I'm sorry, not this guy. Here, BENG. So the moment I say BENG, it gives a lot of drop down. So you have Bangalore, and so on. So I will select the inspector. When I select an inspector, and if you hover on the drop down which I've got, it should pretty much help me to give you the fire path of uh, the look, the link which you are looking for. So here I should look for one. Perfectly fine. If you just see here, just keep a close eye. It's a very interesting thing. So if I hover here, it gives you @ID area option -1. The next guy, yeah, first one was 0, second one is 1. Maybe they have got an index in 2, and so on. So if I have to little scroll down, I have the third one, I have the fourth one, and so on. So all the things are getting changed. The good thing about this people when they develop an application is naming conventions. Obviously, every developer have to maintain it. So what I do is I just select any one of it. So let's consider I'm selecting Bengaluru. So here, this is the dropdown. This is a dropdown. So we just want to construct it very nice. I'll also put a nice separator. So here, I just go back and Expedia partial text test. Okay, so this is something which I got it from the partial text. So here you have the options for source. These are the options for source. What is your source? First and foremost, we would have did one more job. I want to find the. I would just click on the inspect element and click on this guy who is your uh, flight origin HP flight. This is your ID. So this is your ID. So when you click on this, when you enter partial text, partial text, something like San, so which will give you all San Francisco or San Diego, San Jose, and so on. This is where the options are. The options will get changed depending on the number. So what we have to do is we have to get the number of options in the source place, plus the numbers are getting changed, something like this. So if you had closely observed it, and so on. So whatever number, if I have 10, I'll capture 10. If it is 20, I'll capture 20. That's where the story is. The next one, let's do it for destination. For destination, here, if I want to know the element, I'll inspect it. I click on this guy. Here it is called as HP destination HP flight, which is this, for destination. Very good, very good. So here, what I want is the options. So I have entered imagine like WAS, then it will be a lot of drop down. I would just take the inspector and keep hovering. The first one is area options O. Then you have 1, 2, and so on. So that's a pretty interesting one. So what I do is I'll click on one of it, then I do an iteration. So I'll copy this guy, and paste it. Options for destination. So the only difference which I can see between these two people are option. Oh, perfectly fine. They're all in the same options. They're good. I'm sorry. They're good. They're good. So the whole idea is either here you have to think really intelligently. Either this will be open or this will be open. Any point in time, you cannot have both the pop-ups opening. So pretty much the namings are same. You see, hey, look at this, Naveen. You have area option O, area option O. How can differentiate? But the whole idea here, when I click on flying from, the flying to cannot be visible in your DOM. When you click on flying to, flying one cannot be visible on your top. That's where the idea goes with. Plus, I need this flights tab. So what I do is I click on the flights tab. So just to get tab flight, tab flight, tab HP. So here, that's our first tab. So click on tab. Perfectly fine. So we got to click on flights tab. Enter the partial word called as SAN. These are the options which is got. This is for destination. Here you may have to enter something like Washington, whatever name, you know, until it suffices our job. Okay. So let's go back and try writing the test case for this. Of course, we again go back and use generic methods because we have written such a nice class out there. I close all the files. I close all the files. Here, I want to have a new JUnit test case. JUnit test case. Let's call this JUnit test case is basically for uh, partial text source test Expedia. Right. It's a pretty long name. Please bear with me. Right. This is good. And I just want to copy a few things from the generic test one. Uh, Here, I'll just select this from tear down. Absolute. Okay. So here, I don't want base URL one. Base URL is good enough. So unnecessarily, we okay. So first thing is we'll go to expedia.com and open this guy and put it here. Put it here. All right. So driver base URL generic methods loaded. The tear down it does a simple job of going for a sleep for some time and waking up and doing a quit. So now we want to do public void partial text test. So that's where you have it. Throws interrupted exception. So that's okay. So interrupted exception. Okay. Interrupted exception. So once if this is done, I have to annotate this with test. Very good. So now we'll just go ahead and put this driver.get. So first is driver.get. So the URL is base URL so that my page expedia.com is loaded. Once it is loaded, I want to do generic methods dot get element. So what is my element? Let's have a look at this. The element is called as tab flight tab hp. Here this is my locator. The type here is id, we know that, dot click. So once I click, the page switches to flights tab. We are ensuring it. So once if this is done, I want to have two strings, something like fly from partial, which is called san string fly to. It's a partial text was. So something like this. So we want to enter san and get all the options. We want to enter was and get all the options. It's the whole idea. So the elements are given. The elements when it gives, I cannot store it in a single web element. Rather, I want to keep it in a list of elements. So I want to get only in the string fashion. For this, I have a list of string list of source locations is equal to new array list of string. Okay. So next is list string list of destination location is equal to new array list of string. Perfectly fine. So once if this is done, we have to go and enter the partial text. So where do we got to enter the partial text? We have to enter it here, fly from. I've noted this in a notepad. This is origin HP flight. So here on this guy, for this guy, I'll say, hey, uh, generic method dot get element. This is the locator. The type is ID. So first let's clear. So in case if there is already a text, so from here to here, I'll copy it. Dot send keys of fly from partial. Okay, so mix cut. So once after that, let's give a delay because it is taking a little time for popping out. If you have seen it, the moment I enter something like BENG, it takes little time to render. So let's give about like 1500 or some delay. Thread dot sleep of let's give it like 1.5 seconds, not over that. So once if this is done, I have to get I have to get this items. I have to get this items. This is where the items. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, this is your XPath, this is your HTML. Do we have a document? It is not showing the HTML view. The console is good. HTML, it is showing you the fire path. The fire path should give us all the IDs. This is one way to extract it. There was another way, but unfortunately, this guy is not showing up the. Okay, the HTML part is not getting shown. Because I'm just trying to recall one of the test cases which I had written. Now, what happens? What happens is if I try getting area of 0, 1, 2, 3, they're all single elements. Now, I'm just trying to check the possibility if there was something where we can extract in a group wise so that we have written a method in the generics to get elements to extract it. I could still partially see here. If you see this breadcrumb, so you have a span text. So if you just go back and put Bangalore, so I hold it, click on it. So here you see this breadcrumb, you have area, which is the options, whatever. You have a list result items. So result item is basically a class here, which has the list of values and you have a display div. This is not getting shown. Uh, okay. So I may just have to look into Chrome and check if things go well. I'll inspect it in the Chrome. In the Chrome. Alright. So here, say PNG, perfectly fine. So I'll select as inspector. My inspector is this. I just click on it. Yeah. Here I have a list of elements. List of elements. I have a body. Okay. So this guy is getting hidden. Okay. PENG. So the whole idea here is to look into this. I click on this guy. Yeah, here, if I just hover, I'm not clicked on it. I have not clicked on it. But if you see here, so let's try reading out. There are various list items. If you see here, there are various list out items, and all the list items are called as result item. Do you see something here? But the problem with the Google Chrome is the moment I click on it, this tree will be collapsed. This tree will be collapsed. But of course, we have known one thing. There is somebody called as list item. I'm sorry, results item. We see everywhere there is a li with a class which is called as results item. Here you have it. You look at this. Everybody has got results item. So I can pretty much try using this class which is called as results item for getting it. Or you can use area. Area is good, but you have to again iterate and get all those things. The good idea for us to get the results item. So I would use a class which is called as results item here in my script. Let's go back. I would say, hey, I want a list of web element, web element, and the web element I wanted web element which I wanted something like fly from cities or airports, whatever you could say. Airports is equal to generic methods and dot get elements. This time it is elements, it's in the plural form. I want to get it by class. The locator is results dash item. I hope we remember this. So here you have results item. Results item. This is what I was referring to. All right. So once I get this results item, I just want to cross verify one thing. Do we have on the class? If there is a method which takes on class. So I just click on it, hold control and click on it. It will create a class. So I have it with up to X path. So I'll just copy this guy and paste it once again. And here I'll have it with the class. And this will not be XPath, this will be class. Perfectly fine. Uh, what does it say? Yeah, class name. Class name. Based on the class name. And the locator is located. We are good. Now the next job, which we want to do it, is go back. This guy will give you the element from fly from ports. Let's see what does this guy has to give it to us. What does this guy has to give it to us? We'll print it in a nice console so that we'll know what is getting outputted. So I'll say for web element uh, temp in fly from airports fly from airport. So let me do that system.out.println once. I'll say temp is a value which is stored. I want to get the text in it. So that's a whole idea to print it. Once after putting it, I already have a source location list. So the good idea is to put this uh, in temp.get text. This is perfectly fine. This is perfectly fine. And I can do a semicolon here. Good. So let's see if this can go well. We can get the value. We can get the value, right click, run as JUnit. In similar fashion, we can even get it from destination. Okay. So it is just loading it now. So it should click on the flights tab. It's taking a little time. Yeah, it has clicked on flights tab. It should enter something like SAN. Yeah, it enters, and with little delay, it should find the pop-up. The drop down should have recorded the names which is given out there on our console. Let's see what does our console do. Yes, here we have all the data. It is just recording. It is just recording, all the data which is there in the drop down, which will come and sit here. Now the whole idea is to do this. So we want to get the SAN and WAS and get this data done. Okay, so let's quickly do it for somebody out there from and two ports. So from the two ports, we have the results item pretty much. So here I will have, yeah, this fly from. The next guy who comes in the world is fly to. So this is fly from ports. I'll just want to copy this without much delay. Just want to keep a separator, a nice separator, so that we know how this gets differentiated. So here, this is fly from ports. This is the second one is fly to ports. Okay, and the class everything is same. So we have a small changes. It will not be fly from. This guy will be from fly to. Fly to. Perfectly fine. And this will not be list of source locations. This will be list of destination location. Perfectly fine. This is easy enough. Let me just put a tab so that it looks nice. So web elements, fly to ports, generic methods, get this. Okay. But I think I have still missed something. Okay. But I may have to enter. Here we have made a mistake. This line, I still have to copy it. I still have to copy these two lines. I still have to copy these two lines. Here I'll have a drop down. One is it's not flight origin HP flight now. This time it will be flight destination HP flight. Flight destination HP flight. So this will be from here till here changed. From here till here it will be changed. Perfectly fine. So I can print it. So I'll say this is destination locations. And with all that note, let's execute so that we can record this. So once we have this data, we can just send it from source to destination quickly and see how things can work. Let's right click and run as JUnit. Great. So let's maximize it. The page should load. So here, let's click on this. Should click on the flights tab. Mhm. Okay, it has clicked on flights tab.
It should enter SAM and wait for it. It should get recorded, hopefully, I believe. Once if this is done, it has to go back to fly to city or airport. Yeah, it is entering, but it is taking a little time for whatever reason. So it should record the destination now. Destination. So let's see what gets recorded here. Yeah, it is just doing it. If you see, it is just extracting the data. So the whole idea is these are all starting with SAN, and if you see this destination locations, the destination locations are this. So what we want to do is now we want to set first value of source to first value of destination, first value of source to second value of destination, first value of source to third value of destination, and so on. So for doing it, one quick job which we can do is here. Here. So here, once if stories are all done, we have recorded just to see that. You don't have to really go ahead and display it. We are just doing it for our satisfaction. So here, send each value from source to destination. Perfectly fine. So for doing it, I use a for loop for string temp in list of source locations. So once I have the source locations, I'll say system.out.println test case source value is text. I'm sorry, that is temp executing execution. So I'll say the first thing, of course, we have already done a lot of work. So what I do is from the source, we have these two lines. I copy this and go back to source. Anyways, that text box, I want to clear it and send keys. It's not fly from partial. This will be temp. That's the first thing. Then I give a thread dot sleep for like 700 milliseconds, not over a second. So once if it is done, again I use a for loop string temp1 from list of destination location. Destination location. Where is our destination location? It's here, right here. I just want. Okay, so here it is. And I want to put one more statement, system.out.println, test case, destination, execution. Perfectly fine. So it is for source and destination. This will be temp1. I'll copy this guy and put it here. Perfectly fine. Good. So once if this is done, maybe like once the stories are done, thread dot sleep of like 600 milliseconds. That sounds good. So for each of the source, each of the destination will be executed. Let's see if this goes well. Run as JUnit test case. It's taking a little time in my system. It is opening the Chrome browser.
So it should click on the flights tab. Yes. It first prints this SAN and collects it, was and collects all the data. It should pretty much do this for the was as well, where Washington or any other places with Washington should come. It should be collecting all this. Once if this is done, it should go back to the fly from. In fly from, it should put the data for the first data, whatever it has got from San Diego, for each of the destination there, for each of the destination. Okay. Mhm. What did it happen? The test case execution, all test case sources, San Diego. So is that still working? We're just waiting for this to enter. Okay, but we did not touch anything on the date. Yeah, it is doing it. Washington DC and so on. So maybe it is just taking a little more time. If not, it does it. Washington DC. It is pretty going very slow today. I don't know for whatever reason. There's a text which is also passed by, and it does it. For each of the text, each of the destination, we are just putting it. So the whole idea here, let this keep going on. You can keep seeing the output. Test case source, destination first is San Diego. The second one, again, it has come to San Diego, and so on. So what would have happened is, for first source, each of the destination, all 10 or 15, whatever destinations which you have got will be listed. Again, it will go out of the for loop, the external for loop, and again execute, and so on. This does it n number of times, right? And it should do it. This time, Ronald Reagan Washington National. So that's your DCA. Here I should find the DCA here. To be sent. Oh, I think I have made a mistake. By printing this temp, I should have printed temp1 on the console. Just a small correction. Just a small correction. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop it. And here, this will be temp1. So that on your uh, destination, it will be different test cases which will be printing it. So that should do a job for us. So this keeps going on and on. For some reason, I'll just close it. Let me close it. Yeah, it'll give you a stop and things are okay. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.